Welcome back to the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. My name is Lydia and I am your host and wedding photographer based in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. Today on the podcast, I chat to the lovely Kitty. She actually DM'd me saying that she was relatively new to New Zealand and had used the podcast as a helpful tool while planning her own wedding here, and actually helped her find some of her vendors as well. Kitty described herself as anti-wedding in the beginning, and they actually didn't get married on their wedding day. They ended up having a civil union. So really interesting to hear her talk about that, about breaking traditions, not doing what is expected, and creating a day that really represents you, but also just questions some of those traditions and change things to do whatever you want to do. It was really lovely hearing about her experience with the different vendors in New Zealand, and we are a small country and a lot of us know each other and work together a lot. Yeah, overall I do find it a really positive, nice industry to work in, so it's nice to hear that when brides and grooms have that experience as well. He gives lots of amazing advice. This is a great one to listen to if you have a lot of your guests flying in or traveling to your wedding, and how to create a great experience for them leading up to, on the day and after your wedding. He has a lot of amazing advice and tips which might reframe your thinking a bit and think about doing things a bit differently. Something she said that I loved was about prioritizing partnership over the party. So make sure you listen all the way through to this one to not miss any of that wisdom. And you can go over to our Instagram at the Kiwi Wedding Podcast to check out some photos and all the vendor credit as well. So enjoy episode 30. I can't believe we've done 30 with Kitty. Oh, hi Kitty. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast today. So excited to chat to you.
Likewise, so happy to be here.
Yay. So to get started, if you could just tell me a little bit about you and your partner, how you guys met, and your life together.
Yeah, we met at work almost 7 years ago now, and my friends joke that I probably would never have met anyone unless they literally ended up in the same office as me, which is how it worked out. His name's Dan, beautiful Kiwi, kindest person I know. It just was one of those things that everyone says, like, oh, when it's meant to be, everything will be easy. And it just was from day one. Like, still is just the most beautiful person. We got engaged on New Year's Eve, which, pro tip for players at home, best night to get engaged because it's so festive and everyone wants a great New Year's, but often they're really disappointed. He proposed on Coogee Beach near where we used to live when we lived in Sydney. So it was amazing because there was like fireworks and everyone was around us sort of celebrating. And also another tip that I don't think people think about, we were both sitting. I feel like that was kind of lovely. Like we were on the same level when he sort of popped the question. And I remember, just like crying. And we walked back up the street and went to the bottle shop to get some champagne. And the lady in there was like, oh, can I help you? Like, obviously New Year's, it's busy. And I was like, oh, I'm just looking for champagne. I just got engaged. The whole shop just erupted. It was just like the funnest New Year's evening. And then, we could ring everybody and share the news. And I realised quite quickly it's actually other people's excitement for you that makes it so special. Like, everyone was just so thrilled, and it was really special.
Oh, so cool. That's definitely an epic night to do it on. Great recommendation. It's like the celebration's already planned for you. Love that.
Totally. And fireworks in the background. So he like popped the question really quickly because he thought the fireworks would end. I'm like, no, it's Sydney, mate. They'll go for like 40 minutes. We got all the time in the world.
Oh, so good. So special. And so had you always been one of those girls that dreamed about what your wedding would look like? And what was your vision from the get-go? And how did you go about those first steps, planning and finding a venue?
It's so interesting even just chatting to you on this podcast, and I know my friends will find it so hilarious because I think my vision was anti-wedding. I don't particularly believe in it, which is probably a terrible thing to say. and we had a civil union for that reason. So I very much wanted, like, we were very committed. We've moved 2 countries together. Like, I'd never had any, I think some people get married because they want to like seal the deal. Dan's never given me any reason to doubt his commitment. I believe in monogamy and a partnership and all of that, but marriage stuff, not so much. So when he asked, I was kind of like, oh, that's nice. Let's do a courthouse and a dinner. That'll be lovely. And he sort of said, oh, I would quite like actually to do some, like, say something in front of people. And, like, he was sort of a little bit more traditional, not necessarily in the marriage sense, just in the celebration sense. So, yeah, I spent a good 6 months rallying against every part of wedding planning. I was like, I don't want an aisle, I don't want a cake, I don't like all these things that I just didn't want. And what I realized, as I said, after about 6 months of just raging against it and saying it's not a wedding, it's a civil union, it's very adult, was that everybody wants a wedding. They love it. Like, they want to celebrate your love, they want to celebrate you. And I would just see the look of shock and horror on my suppliers' faces when I would talk to them about what I wanted. And they weren't knocking it, but they were like, this is not what people are going to expect. Like, they want the moment, they want the white dress. So it was a civil union in the end with very simple vows. But it walked like a wedding, talked like a wedding, looked like a wedding. You chuck a veil on and you're a bride. So yeah, there were lots of things we pulled out of it from a traditional sense. But yeah, I didn't grow up dreaming of it. I, liked the idea of a dress because I like fashion, but it wasn't a vision I'd ever had. So I was kind of like, let's keep it low key. And then I remember the day after we picked the venue. So we got married at the Glasshouse, which I know you've had a couple people on, so I won't wax lyrical other than to say that
Such
they're
a nice
amazing.
spot.
It's just heavenly. We live really nearby. So that was more the reason we picked it. We wanted it to reflect, particularly for my whānau coming over from Aussie, I wanted them to see where we actually lived and experience the suburb. And I think when Dan sort of said the next day, I've just never thought of having a wedding or a party. Like, we can just do all this stuff that's like so cool and so us. And the fact that he'd gone his whole life and never thought about it or had like wedding ideas projected onto him got me quite excited, because I was like, oh yeah, it is actually an opportunity to have family and friends and people you love in a space and just create a nice evening for that. So yeah, I kind of lent into that side of it a little bit more.
So cool to hear that background and how it evolved into what it was. What were your most important elements of the day? Your top priorities when it came to different vendors or dress, food, all of that.
Yeah, so I think we are probably in a small proportion of people who were just very lucky with that venue, in that it is the star of the show. So the place was really important. Like I said, I wanted people to see where we lived, and we had like little events around as well. So like at nearby pubs and things. So, we created some really nice memories around that. Photography, I did prioritize because everyone tells you to, and I think absolutely you should. And our photographer her name's Santa. She's amazing. And she kind of saved the day, to be honest, because I was rolling in with such a casual attitude. I was like, I'll chuck the dress on in the green room. We'll just get this show on the road. And she's like, you don't get any discounts for being casual. And that was such good advice. And it's when I realized, just listen to the professionals. So we prioritized photography, and the other part was the meal and the food. Because I think, you can go down the path of going, how can we minimize costs here? Do we just do something that's not sit down? And Dan, thankfully, again, I had many people talking sense into me. He was like, you can't ask people to fly from another country and not give them a dinner. So yeah, we sort of prioritized like having a full meal. Yeah, there was just like a few things that we decided, like when we looked at budget, like that we just had to not do at all. Like flowers, I'd say, would be a huge budget kind of bracket for lots of people. And again, we were lucky with the Glasshouse because it's beautiful, but I just had a bouquet. We didn't have any other flowers. I think we saved there. So yeah, food and venue, I think, is sort of what we prioritised.
Yeah, nice. So good. And can you tell me a bit about your wedding outfits, your dress? How was that whole process, finding it or getting it made?
Loose, I would say. I was actually back in Aussie at another girlfriend's hens party. She had like a 4 day hens party on the Gold Coast, which was amazing. And I just thought, I'm not having a hens party, so this will probably be it. We'd only been engaged for a couple of days. And I flew up there, and one of my other best girlfriends, who was our witness, Megan, I took her wedding dress shopping when she got married, and she said, "Well, I want to take you. You know, I've only got a little bit of time, but I'll take you somewhere local." And I was like, oh, I'm not going to want to do this. I'm partying, whatever. I'm so glad she took me. So we went to the Grace Loves Lace showroom, and I went through our messages afterward actually, and because I was like, I don't even like lace. Why are we, But she had picked out the dress that I ended up with. It was like the second one I tried on, and I just put it on, and I was like, oh, we're in trouble here. Like, this is pretty nice, because I was like, I don't even want a wedding dress. I'll just get something online. And even she was a bit worried, because she's like, oh, maybe you should try on more. And honestly, like, we had such a lovely little afternoon. I was with my beautiful friend, had a glass of champagne. It was just this really lovely moment. And I thought, I was quite new to New Zealand then as well. So I was like, I could schlep around bridal places in Auckland by myself and try and find something better, or just lock it in. I do think the wedding dress industry is such a racket with all their timings. Like, time again, I'd probably just buy something off the rack and have it altered. Like Nanzine, who I know you know from Alter Me. Oh my God, she was just my guardian angel. There are quite a few things that needed, fixing in the end, because what you try on in the showroom isn't what is fabricated in the end. So yeah, she was heaven. And you will need alterations, which is kind of why, yeah, definitely get the vision, get the dress that you want, but factor in alterations into your budget um, for that reason. So it fits and like functions on the day. But yeah, I never thought I'd have a long dress, never thought I'd have a veil, but I did. And it was the star of the show at the end of the day. But just something that, you put on and just go, oh, this is great. And another tip a friend gave me was, if you've already got something similar to that in your wardrobe, it kind of shows that it's something that you're comfortable in and that you like and that can be a bit timeless. So I had a dress that was pretty much exactly the same in a short version in black, and I'd had another one really similar. So yeah, I don't think the wedding day is the day to go out on a limb with something, that doesn't feel very you.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's good to just think about your personal style and kind of stick to that in some ways as well. Because, yeah, like you say, it's not the time to just go crazy and something that's completely not you.
The other tip I got that was great was, often in bridal shops, and mine didn't, but they put you on a platform which elongates your body and makes you look like a goddess, but then you come actual down to reality and you see the proportions really differently. And I thought that was really smart as well, because in the shop, they kind of like make it all look amazing, and then when it comes to your house and you've got to try and wrangle yourself into it with no help because your partner can't see it, is much less glamorous. So definitely, like, yeah, think about it from that perspective too.
Yeah, that's another great tip for sure. And did you have a bridal party as well? And how was that process choosing them, if so?
No, I didn't. And we were chatting about it this morning actually. And because, like, we're the only ones who live in Auckland, everyone was traveling in. I just felt like it added just work for people, and I wanted, because everyone would have to travel, I felt like they'd already done enough work and spent enough money. So instead of a bridal party, we had our two witnesses, Megan and Colum, who we, shortly after we met actually, they each had gotten married and we were maid of honor and best man. So it was like a really lovely little sort of full circle, they sort of did the same role. And I have to be honest, you don't miss it, and you can give people special roles on the day without making them all get dressed up in the same outfit and adding all of those logistics. So my friends, Mem and Ash, they got ready with us and like walked down to Wild Poppies to pick up my bouquet for me. And like there were just really lovely little touches that close friends got to do on the day that, didn't involve having to, force rank all of your friends when you're in your mid-30s. I don't know, it just made it logistically a lot easier. And I don't think anybody missed that factor. And it also removed the need for like a head table. And one of the tips from the Glasshouse actually was we had two tables and we had two seats on each that we swapped throughout the night. So we could each like sit with our own friends and whānau throughout the evening without sort of being separated, which I actually think was really nice and got us much more amongst everything as well. So I don't think anyone was offended that we didn't have a bridal party. And as I said, we didn't miss it and to get like lots of cost savings. No bouquets, no cufflinks, no dresses. It was much easier.
Yeah, great. That's such a cool perspective to hear and good thing for people to think about. Like, you don't have to have one at all, and it doesn't matter, and you can still have people get ready with you and do those different roles without being officially bridal party. And I love that tip about the seating as well. I don't think I've heard that before, but that's such a good way to just make sure you get to have a chat and spend time with everyone and see your husband or wife, whoever, on the day as well, instead of being separated a lot, because I know that does happen.
We sort of did quick speeches and then kind of went off, and we hadn't actually talked about like which table we'd sit at first. That was the one thing we hadn't really planned. And I just looked up and I saw Dan's mum looking at him, and I saw like my cousins who'd flown in, and we both just kind of like paired off. And you want to be like with your people immediately after. And our friends were sort of joking, like, "Oh God, parted ways already." But it was really nice because you want to be with the people you want to be with, and like it was such a great tip from them because it also meant we had a little bit of leeway for people moving around as well.
Cool. Oh, that's so good. And how was that whole guest list process? Did you find that hard narrowing them down?
Yes, I think probably the hardest thing was, acknowledging the venue and our budget. We couldn't have kids. We're probably one of only four people that don't have kids, so we're a bit older, and everyone we know has children, and it's not a space really where you can have them. We had to make like a nephews and newborns rule, so we had three of our nephews and one girlfriend who had a tiny little baby who was he was the best behaved the whole night. um, that was probably the most difficult, aspect because it's hard to say no to people. But when I was thinking about like any tips for budget and sort of how we managed to wrangle ours, it genuinely probably is the amount of your guest list. We had 56 people in the end, had a couple pull out just before. It's not really something you control depending how many family members you have or who expects to be there, but that is kind of half the size, I would say, of most weddings. And we were sort of worried maybe with the space it would feel small, but it didn't at all. And the one thing one of my friends said to me was, "This is the only wedding where I feel like I've actually got to spend time with you and I've gotten to speak to all the guests." So if you can, like, if we could have got it down to 30, I think it would have been a whole different event as well. Like, if you can narrow it down to really core people, it can save on budget and gives you a little bit more of that time where you actually feel like you get to have a conversation with everybody. But I know that's sort of not possible for everyone.
Yeah, that's such a great tip. That's a really nice number and something to aim for if it is possible. But like you say, just get to spend a lot more quality time with your guests. And can you tell us about the day? How did it all go down? And any highlights or favorite moments?
Oh, the day, I think I was like very stressed right up until we sort of got to the Glasshouse. I wanted to do everything really locally, so I got hair and makeup done at Disco Salon, just here in Morningside. Dave and Jenny there were, oh my God, angels. They were so amazing. So we had a proper salon space, which really helped. We had Kate Solly makeup, which she's just heaven. I can't recommend getting married on a Monday enough. It's probably the only reason we got her. And she just was such a beautiful grounding presence on the day because, obviously she does it all the time and you only do it once. And I remember at one point she's like, "Oh, how are you going?" And I was like, I'm not even liking it yet. And she said, "Honestly, everyone thinks this part is all champagne and music and dancing. And she's like, it's not, it's logistics. Concentrate on having fun tonight. And yeah, we all got ready, had photos at the convent. We were staying at the convent, which was beautiful. And yeah, the minute I sort of clocked off was when I arrived at the Glasshouse, and I knew I'd like coordinator there who was just so on top of everything. And I was like, right, now I can have fun. And then my favorite part of the day, because you are quite nervous, and I wasn't expecting to be, but you realize when you're in a white dress, everyone's just staring at you the whole time. The doors opened and I saw like three of my just childhood friends I've known. Like we went to kindergarten together, Zach, Annie, and Damien, just like looking at me, beaming, like just kind of nodding, going like, you can do this, you can do this. And that was my favorite bit, because I thought, oh, okay, like my friends are here, everyone here loves us. And yeah, Dan walked out to the top of the aisle, and then I walked out to join him, and we walked down together, which was, yeah, a really nice moment. So again, you don't have to do traditional entrances if you don't want to. And I don't think anyone felt ripped off by that. That was sort of, yeah. No one was really expecting me, I don't think, to roll out quite so soon. But yeah, it was just beautiful seeing everybody's like shiny eyes looking at you. And yeah, you do really feel the love in the room.
Yeah, oh, so special. So many good moments there. I love that. And what did you find the hardest about the wedding planning process? And is there anything you look back on and regret or would do a bit differently?
I think not wanting a wedding is probably the hardest. Not wanting one and then having to plan one. Probably wouldn't recommend it. I just have so much respect for people in event planning. It's a job, it's an industry. Like, I already have a full-time job. So I know if you've dreamed about, all the little touches, you can really relish the moments when you're, writing the place cards and designing invites. And I kind of just saw that as unpaid work in the end. I found it, yeah, I wish I could have enjoyed it more. I knew I would enjoy the day, and I knew, and everything was perfect on the day, but it is a lot of work. And I am so fortunate that my partner was so into it. Like, he designed the invites, like he did like so many, like literally like split all the work 50-50, but it still was a lot. And I think for just admin's sake, the only thing I do differently was just create a wedding based email address and have it all sitting there, so you don't have wedding stuff flying in when you're trying to go about, your everyday work. Because yeah, like invoices and follow ups keep coming through. And one of the best tips I read somewhere was pay all of your invoices before the day. Like, you do not want to be dealing with any of that stuff after you've been married, because you're not going to care and it's all going to be over. And that was great advice, just tying off all of that admin. So once, it was go time, you could really enjoy it. But yeah, it was absolutely beautiful and worth it in the end, but it's a lot of work. And I think if you don't have a really strong desire to have the day and create those memories and have a vision for what you want, get a photo shoot in beautiful outfits and call it a day. It's so much work. And I think, for myself, because I'd sort of newly moved here when we started planning, I didn't really know anybody. Like, you don't have girlfriends and stuff around to offload things. And as much as my partner was so involved, so much of the admin's actually just on your body, like the eyebrows, the tan, the whitening, that, there's so much that they can't actually help with in the end. So it's just lots of appointments. I'm very fortunate I had a flexible workplace to fit it all in. But yeah, I kind of got what they meant in the end, when everyone's like, oh, you need a year to plan a wedding. And I think we did ours in like 6 months. So I couldn't have standed it for any longer. But I do know now why they say that.
Yeah, awesome, amazing advice in there. And I think people don't always talk about the whole admin and yeah, how much work goes into the background of it. Like, it's all these exciting, pretty fun things, but it's like so many emails and scheduling and appointments, and then balancing all of that with a full-time job. Like, yeah, it's a lot of work just even communicating with your vendors. Like, amazing vendors do help that, but yeah, there's always going to be a bit more admin, maybe unless you have a planner who's really onto it, but it is a lot of work.
Totally. I do think if you could afford a planner, it would be well worth your money just for that. Because I counted in the end, we had 21 vendors for an all-inclusive venue. Like, you still need a lot of those contacts. And as I said, like, it comes out of just sheer respect for everybody who has those jobs, because it is work. And the week before, when we just had run out of puff and we're just like, whatever, that is the time where you really need to buckle down and do all those like little extra, send those extra emails, because that's the difference between, place cards being laid out perfectly and the music starting when you want it to. Like, when you just feel like you've had enough, like, push that extra 10%, because they're all the little things that end up coming off in the end. But yeah.
Can see why people are so exhausted after their days and you need that little getaway. And yeah, can you talk about what your budget was, how much you ended up spending, if you're happy to talk about that ballpark figure even, and yeah, how did that whole process go? Did you end up blowing the budget?
Absolutely happy to talk about it. We budgeted $25,000 and we stuck pretty closely to that, which I know puts us again, like, I know it just so easily can blow out. And I am not a great budgeter and would sort of just get things here or there. And my partner was like, no, let's put everything in, like that $61 of printing, or because that's how it all adds up and can snowball so easily. So we were very, very fortunate in that our parents both gave us money, because they'd given our siblings money for weddings, which covered like a lot of it. I think like everybody at the moment, cost of living, trying to get on the property ladder, like there's so many priorities. But I think I knew, based off friends' experiences, how much these things sort of run. And in Sydney, to be dead honest, for what we had here would have cost double. I think my partner was like, oh, 10 grand will do it, won't it? And I was like, oh, like, if you need, and again, this was
Yes.
his call. He wanted, like, I know, he wanted a ceremony to say something. I think if you really are stretched, if you can remove the need for AV microphone and you don't do that part and you just have a dinner at like a restaurant, I think you could probably get away with much less. But the minute you need to have a microphone to say things, that's exclusive use and bumps you straight into wedding territory rather than party territory. And from there, it just stacks up. So I feel like for all the essential things, we kept it well underneath that budget and got some money back from the bar. Actually, we expected that to be a bit more steep. And if we did go over, it would have been like things that were my personal choices. So, a second like dress, which I used for our engagement shoot, makeup trial, hair trial, like that sort of thing that I would just use in my discretionary spending. But yeah, we were pretty happy in the end that we did manage to cap it. I would say though, that last 2 weeks have like $500 or $1,000 sitting there just for those last minute little, things. Like, your bridal underwear is $300. Like, all of that stuff that just adds up super quickly, and at every juncture just question whether you need things. So we didn't have a wedding cake. I didn't think it was a priority. The venue served dessert. It just seemed like wasteful. And I remember someone saying, but you've got to have one. It's tradition. Like, you actually don't. So every single thing that you can question, do, because like, do you need 8 hours of DJ or do you need two? Yeah, flowers again, another example. Like, if you really have to start pulling back, you better just to question everything that's traditional or included, because you can really scrape back the money and all the things that you think are going to add so much amazingness to the day. No one notices. Like, they remember the food and the feeling.
Yeah, that's some great advice. It's very impressive that you stuck to that budget, to be honest. It's yeah, I guess considered low in this day and age, but it just goes to show that you can do it if you're, yeah, just savvy with different things and prioritize certain things over others. Yeah.
For sure. And I think, again, I'll stress, like, the venue is such a, like, we couldn't have pulled off something that looked like that in a hall. Like, we would have had to get decor in, probably would have cost more. The other one was, we were real jerks and put it on a Monday night, which obviously is the cheapest, because we couldn't afford the weekend rates. But what I would say is, if you can't afford weekend rates and you've got people flying in, a Thursday is more inconvenient because it's got another work day alongside of it. And we sort of figured people can fly in for the weekend, have a nice time, come to the wedding, and then get cheap flights out midweek. Lots of people chose to stay much longer, but it's not the most popular move. But my friend Bells, I remember very early in the planning process, was like, well, if they don't like it, they can not come. Who cares? Your day, whatever. So that, I think, choice saved us a lot, and also meant, again, like vendors like Kate, I probably couldn't have got her on that short notice if it wasn't a Monday. So that's another consideration, that a lot of you've got a tight timeline. A lot of your vendors aren't, not many people do it on a Monday. So if you, are trying to shave down those things and lock in people and vendors that you really want, that'd be another tip. As annoying as it would have been for everyone. God.
Oh, that's a good one though. Nothing wrong with a weekday wedding, and definitely think about it if you're trying to save money, or like you say, if your friends and family really care, then they'll make it happen. So, and did you guys go on honeymoon straight away? And what did planning that look like?
Dan planned all of that because he's a saint. We didn't go straight away. So we had the wedding on the Monday, and then I wanted to do separate days during the week because we had so many people here in town that probably will never be again. So we booked a space at Crave Cafe next door to the Glasshouse the next morning for people to drop in and get coffees, or to have like big hangover breakfast. And then we just migrated to the TAV that afternoon. So we sort of said, look, come back to the same block. We'll be here all day. The next day we booked a wine tour for Waiheke, which was beautiful. And again, just another chance to like really hang out with people, make those memories. We had a long lunch at Ada with some of our close friends as well. So we really tried not to make it just the day, like plan extra things around so it felt like full party vibes. The downside of that was that you just are on for so long and you're trying to cater to everybody else. There's not much left in the tank. So by the time we flew back to Australia to see friends and family, I think we're both pretty beat. And then, Dan had booked honeymoon in Bali, which was beautiful. We had the best time. The weather was amazing. Like I just said, I just want to be poolside with a cocktail in the sun, just have a big rest. And then towards the end of it, both of us got really, really sick, which I think was just coming. So if you're going to be sick, a 5-star villa in Nusa Dua is a great place to do it, I'd say.
Was it Bali Ballet?
I think mine was just a cold. I tested for COVID because it was quite bad, but I was expecting it. It's just one of those things where you're just working up and up and up on such a steep incline. And I kept saying to people, like, it's not just a wedding I'm planning like 20 people's holidays. Like I honestly felt like New Zealand's tourism ambassador because I wanted them all to love it, and I wanted them to like come here and be like, this is amazing, we understand why you've moved, and really like get to experience some of the culture. And like on the Sunday before, actually, my mum's very Catholic, so are a couple of her friends, and I said, oh well, we'll go to a mass, that'll be lovely, like I've never been. So we went to St. Joseph's, beautiful Catholic church next to the convent, and I thought, oh, that's lovely, and I can say, oh, this is where we're staying, getting our photos. And we sat in on the service, which was beautiful. And at the start, because we're like the only Pākehā in there, obviously the priest came up and he's like, where are you from? And they're like, oh, we're from Australia, we're here for my daughter's wedding. At the end of the service, he was like, everyone turn around and welcome our new friends from Australia, give them a wave. And like, we were just like, oh my gosh. And he said, and we've got a bride-to-be in our presence, can you come down? I'd love to give you a blessing. So I had to stand up in front of this like full congregation, walk down the aisle, and all these aunties going, good practice for tomorrow, sweetheart, like got a blessing. And then it turned out that the organist is like an opera singer, and he proceeded to sing me my own personal aria in front of everybody. It was like the most, all the aunties bawling their eyes out, Mum, her friends crying. I didn't know what to do or where to look. It was so overwhelming, but we're just like this beautiful just example of, like people just wishing you well and wanting the best for you, and again creating these like little pockets of moments outside of the day that are super memorable. Because that for sure, I was just like, who would ever imagine this? And then when he stopped singing, the priest was like, oh, forget your husband, marry him, he can sing to you like this all the time. So it's just like this really lovely really lovely memory. And I managed to get a video of it as well, which is just so special. So yeah, there are lots of memories that you can't really pay for, I think.
Yeah, so cool. That's hilarious but amazing as well, and such great advice to just like plan other things around it. And especially if you have a lot of people traveling, make a week out of it, even though it's exhausting, but such quality time and cool stories afterwards.
Totally. And I was so fortunate in my workplace. Oh, they're just saints. They basically told me to take the month off. They were like, well, you only get married once and it's near Christmas anyway. I didn't even have that much leave. I just never would have thought about it. And they're just like, no, absolutely. You enjoy that time. You've got everyone flying in. It's so special. So I was, yeah, very, very lucky on that front that, yeah, we did get that extra break. And you're right. If you've got people traveling, even just organizing little lunches that you get that one-on-one time, because you really don't get that much on the day, which I know everybody says, but it's true. And you want people who have spent so much money to come to feel like they've gotten, yeah, at least enough of your company to warrant some memories for sure.
Yeah, so good. And were there any helpful websites or apps, resources that you used during the wedding planning process?
This podcast, number one, and it helped me find probably the best last minute, didn't even think about it, vendor, Nosy Parker. Oh my gosh. It was so spur of the moment. I just thought, because videography was something we couldn't afford. So we spent money on the photography package, which I'm glad, but we just couldn't spring the thousands for video. And I thought, I would just like a record of the speeches, and I contacted her and she was amazing. The next day, thousands of files, 9 o'clock the next morning, and all you want to do, and a friend had said this to me, you don't have your phone on the day, and all you want to do the next day is like go back and have a look, and you can't because you don't have any. It's just for the money, like the best service, like all these just little snippets of the day. And what was really unexpected, so she put together a reel, which is beautiful, that I could share with everyone the next day, and they all loved it. But all the snippets have audio as well, so you can hear like little bits of conversation that you wouldn't normally get. And it is like exactly what she says, just fly on the wall, but just like having a friend who's really good at that stuff, just on it, so you can truly be in the moment and relax. And yeah, like there's just so many things that without that I wouldn't have known happened or didn't remember because it's all such a blur. Yeah, I remember so clearly yeah, getting her details from your podcast as well. I think you have to really operate to your strengths in New Zealand, and one of them is it's small. And really, I mean, I'm speaking Auckland specifically, but it's quite a small network. So Instagram was great. Like once we locked in our photographer, who I mentioned kind of saved the day and made me actually go, no, I need to properly plan. You kind of get in those networks and realize like lots of people are used to working together. Like my makeup artist had worked with my hairdressers before. My eyebrow lady, MJ, she's, oh God, she's a saint. She recommended my tan person. So like everyone sort of does know each other, and Instagram's great for that. Like if you see different people following each other, or if you've got your heart set on a vendor that you can't get, ask them for who they recommend, because likely they do similar things. Because yeah, I often thought if I was trying to plan this in Sydney, it would have been a much bigger mission, because it's just such a big industry. And here, yeah, everyone's quite close. And I remember Xander, the photographer, actually dropped off a copy of the Together wedding journal to our house. God love her. And a lot of those supplies were in there too. So it is, yeah, like everyone's really contactable, very friendly. And if you are booking a venue, ask them for their recommended supplier list. So they have the people who they're used to working with, like bumping in and out furniture and lights and stuff wasn't a drama, because the Glasshouse deal with those people all the time, and they're probably there the next day setting something else up. So that stuff really helps if you can get people working together as much as possible.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I definitely know that as a wedding vendor in Auckland as well. Even it's our biggest city, but New Zealand is still so small and we are all connected. And yeah, definitely talk to your vendors if you're looking for another vendor, because chances are they'll be able to recommend someone great that they've worked with before. And yeah, I love that you listen to the podcast. It's cool to see it kind of helping people in real time now that we're a few episodes in. And amazing that you got to work with Libby Jean and Nosy Parker. And yeah, definitely go back and listen to that episode if you haven't already and you're wondering what it's all about. Wedding content creation. It's really cool, pretty new service in the industry, but so awesome to just get all that content back straight away.
Totally. And it wasn't like iPhone content, like it was really high quality. And all you want, unless videography is something you want and want to prioritize, in which case budget for it, pay for it. What you really want is just like a little snapshot of the day, like a little highlight reel. Like that's kind of all you need. And you're never going to sit down and watch a half-hour video of your wedding, I don't think. But like, yeah, oh, she was just amazing. You just wouldn't have known she was there. And again, like super last minute. That actually wasn't in the budget, but I bumped that in because I'm so glad I did because I think she'd only just newly started and I'd heard about it. And I thought, that is genius. And at least we'll have that. And yeah, we haven't actually got the professional wedding photos back, but I said to the photographer, like, take your time. We've got all of these ones to look back on, and now we've got something to look forward to. And I think the other big one for us in terms of suppliers, because could not stress enough, everyone we worked with was so professional, world class, so friendly and beautiful to deal with. It's actually a great way to meet people. Flowey, our celebrant, who I found him when I was back in my let's get married at the courthouse era, do like civil union. Um, he does a lot of traditional weddings, but had absolutely no dramas translating those skills into our civil union. Like I was being kind of annoyingly specific. I didn't want husband and wife language. I didn't want, death to us part language. I wanted it to be like, a civil kind of contract. And then we did a little bit of a speech afterwards. And he was just word perfect on every aspect, timed all of the music for us, and also operated as our MC. So we didn't ask a friend to do that either. And just ran the whole night and made everybody feel welcomed, happy. They knew what was going on. Like he just really took charge. And one of the most beautiful parts was, and we'd practice it in rehearsal. He said, you're going to get really overwhelmed when you walk in because everyone's staring at you. And I didn't believe him, but you do. And he said, just come up the aisle and face me, and I won't tell you to turn around and face everyone until I know you've gotten your composure so that, we can move on. And it was just such a pro tip because I didn't think much of it, but certainly on the day, I was just looking at him like, please help, I don't want to bawl this whole time. And he just really created such a beautiful space for us, and everyone loved him as well. So having a professional do that stuff, I also think helps make the evening run really smoothly because they just foresee things that you don't.
Yeah, that's such a good one. I have a lot to say about MCs, and yeah, it makes it so difficult when it's like a bad one, or you have to end up kind of managing them as the photographer or a caterer, another vendor on the day, being like, okay, we need to eat dinner, you need to get the speech going now, and yeah, just lifting that responsibility off one of your friends or family members so that they can just like drink and eat and chat and enjoy, then yeah, that's a really good tip to hire someone if you can.
100%.
That makes me so happy to hear about your experience as well with the local vendors and stuff. Like overall, I do find it a really lovely industry and yeah, place to work in that people all just recommend and refer each other, and yeah, you can make lots of friends through the wedding industry. So yeah, so nice to hear that you had a good experience overall.
So lovely. And I remember laughing so hard. I'd been into the alterations place like quite a few times to get various things fixed. And when I was leaving, Nanzine and her co-worker were like, we're really going to miss you around here. I was like, oh gosh, they have like so many people. But it was just one of those things, like I'd always be popping in for something and I was like, yeah, actually, I was like, I'll be back for dry cleaning. And it was just, everyone was just, I mean, I find that in New Zealand in general, to be honest, but everyone was so caring. And I kept saying to my friends who, again, just thought it was hilarious, I was having a wedding at all. Um, But everyone, when you're a bride, they just handle you like you're an atomic bomb. Like, no one wants to upset you. Everyone's ready for you just to like fly off the handle at any given moment. So all that gentle handling came in very handy in the end, where you really are just like teetering on the edge and everything's like coming down to the wire. It does make a massive difference.
So good. You do just form these special relationships with people and yeah, through that whole process. So so nice to hear. And yeah, do you have any advice that you would give to couples planning their wedding at the moment?
A couple things. One, speak to people who have done it recently, because there are so many people who've been married, but even if it was 5, 10 years ago, it just, the industry evolves, what's expected evolves, and like a lot of information actually isn't that helpful in current context. So people who've recently done it or in the planning process, because everybody, I think you put so much work in and it ends up just being this like purge where you just want to go, oh, here's this person, they were great. And the other one, which I sort of touched on before, but question everything. Like, really question everything. Like, do you need a bridal entrance? Do you need a bridal party? Do you need flowers? Do you need speeches? Like, we didn't do speeches. Like, we got up, said something to each other, and did a toast. It literally clocked in under 5 minutes. No one missed that. Cake, another example. If you've got dessert, it's kind of wasteful. Like, if you really are trying to fit in a budget and reflect sort of what you value, there are lots of things, particularly in like great suppliers and well-meaning suppliers will kind of just bring along all the stuff that they know to do. And some of it's fantastic, but others it's like, are we doing it because that's what we would have picked, or is it just because that's what they do for everyone else? I think the last one would be, and I got this from my friend Soph, and it was such a great tip, give your MC a list of all the photos you want with people and have them mic'd up and read it out after your ceremony. So we literally, where everyone was still sat in the pews, we did the signing, did a bit of an excerpt and the cheers, and then had the MC read out like this group, this group, this group, because everybody wants a photo with the bride and groom. And just to get that done and know that they were in the bank and, you know, not someone trying to grab it on an iPhone, like that really streamlines that whole process. Because I think a lot of the time people are, they want to speak to you, but they also want a photo. So if you, yeah, send that list ahead of time. And as I said, just question lots of things, because you can have what walks and talks and functions like a wedding, as I said, without a lot of the other traditional stuff. If that's not important to you, and like I said, for me, it sort of wasn't, and we ended up just omitting things that didn't really resonate or feel right for us, and no one missed it, you know. But I would say everyone would have missed if I wasn't in a big dress and had the veil and the entrance, and so there are some things you have to serve up to people because they want a bride at the end of the day. So give them that, but they don't need cake.
Oh, such great advice. So much in there. I love it. And yeah, definitely a key piece. Just question everything and think about it. And yeah, another great job for your MC to do those group photos. I know myself as a photographer and many others tell people to write their list and appoint someone with a mic to just get it done quickly. Saves us yelling at people that we don't know. And
Yes.
yeah, getting the MC to do it as well, not a family member that's going to get chatting and distracted as well. That's another great job for them. And what is life like now? Do you feel like you got any of the post-wedding blues?
It's funny, like everyone warns you about it, but they frame it as you being so disappointed it's all over. I was so relieved when it was all over. But like I said, I planned so much in that week and I had so many people here. It was more just exhaustion because you're just trying to cater. And I think the pressure on the day, it's just a lot of pressure. You just want everything to go perfectly, not necessarily, you know, in a perfectionist way, but you're just like, there's so much money riding on this, and there's all these people have flown in, and like I've put in all this work for just something not to work at the 11th hour would be really annoying. And I remember recently listening to a poor girl who was getting married over the floods, and I just felt like such a spoiled brat. But yeah, no, it's been, well, we've tried to sort of get back to normal since. Like what I thought, we'd originally planned to fly straight out afterwards, and I thought that'll be great. We'll fly out with everyone into Australia, keep the party going, because I didn't want it to feel like everybody just left me here and we were here. And the reality was, all I wanted to be was just in our apartment with just us two, cleaning up, getting back to normal. And it's like taken a little bit, chuck in, as we were chatting before, a bit of a surprise abdominal surgery, which wasn't ideal. So not back to normal yet, but I think the one thing that, you know, as I said, I bent and we did the wedding thing, but what I've always prioritized is the partnership over the party. And I feel, oh God, grateful every day, but that is the strongest part of who we are, not that one day. And I think just getting back to like the core of that and why you want to do it is probably really important, because it's so easy to get caught up, and it is really stressful, and you are going to have fights you never thought you'd have. But yeah, I just feel really lucky that I'm like, party aside, I've picked the right partner in life, and I just feel very grateful for him every day.
Yeah, that's such great advice. People definitely get caught up on this one day and this big celebration, which is important, but it's like, what about your partnership or your marriage afterwards? That is the most important thing, that is going to last longer than that one day. So definitely being intentional with, yeah, focusing on that, and that's what matters most, right?
Absolutely. And I think also people, for better or worse, really revere marriage and partnerships. And I think it is beautiful. And it's really unfair for all my single girls out there that you do just get a lot of social capital out of being engaged, about getting married. And I find it kind of deeply unfair, but at the same time, I really had to talk myself into like accepting that love. Like people come at it with so much love and care, and they want to celebrate, and they're so happy for you, and they just want to share in it. And it's just this beautiful like ecosystem of like Araha that I never knew existed before, which is sort of exclusively allotted for newlyweds and things. Even if that does grind your gears a bit, accept it, because it is beautiful. And people, you know, particularly like older ladies and things, like they give you like all this beautiful advice and tell you, you know, just all these like little snippets. And I think you can be like me for the first 6 months, rage against the machine and like feminist style, or you can just let all that love in and accept it for what it is, which is just a really beautiful, well-meaning, a lot of wishes. So just, if you've got it coming your way, soak it up, because you don't get it otherwise. I don't think no one celebrates a 40th like they do a wedding, you know.
So true. Yeah, just accept the love. That's great advice. And yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add or say to engage people as we wrap up?
Just that one sort of focus on prioritizing partnership over party, because I, you know, that can very much fall by the wayside, and I never thought I'd get carried away. You absolutely do. And it's very easy to do. I think just make sure the foundations are strong. And like I said at the start, if it has never been your vision and it's not something you've dreamed for yourself, and if your partner doesn't feel one way or the other about it, book a beautiful photo shoot and have a dinner, because it's not for the lighthearted. It's more than a party. And once you invest, you know, and our budget was reasonably modest in terms of wedding steaks, but once you're investing that amount, you need to follow it up with all the extra work to make it worthwhile. And if it's not your jam, like a marriage doesn't legitimize a partnership anymore, then, you know, like I said, we've moved countries together. You don't need it, but if you're going to do it, yeah, you're in. There's no casual way to do it, or as Xander said, there's no discounts for being casual. So definitely have a think about all of that first. But I would say it is, you know, a very lovely thing to have done for not just us, but for everyone else. Everyone does. They love love, and they want to see you happy, and you give them an opportunity to show you that love. So think about it in a broader ecosystem, because everyone says it's your day. It actually is much bigger than you. And, you know, the mums and everyone sort of has their role and their vision for what they wanted for you as well. So try to embrace it as much as you can, probably more than I did.
Oh, I love that. Such a unique perspective to hear from you. That's definitely a cool way to think about it, and maybe a little challenge for some people. Just think a bit differently. So lovely to chat to you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Likewise, it's such a pleasure. And yeah, the one thing I would know about recently married people is they're just bursting with ideas and advice. So if it can help anybody, it's the most helpful resource, just to, yeah, kind of feel like you're rowing in the same boat as other people, because it is definitely a unique experience, and all of those things are much better when shared.
Absolutely. I know this is going to be super helpful.